Shocking twist! This perfect wife just did the unthinkable when she discovered her husband's dark secret. Olivia. 10 years of marriage. Complete trust in her husband. But those secret phone calls, the hidden messages, and Brandon's strange behavior made her suspicious. Then came the bombshell. A store owner accidentally revealed the truth that shattered everything. Her husband was kissing another woman right here. Just 1 month ago. Instead of crying, instead of begging, Olivia planned the most ruthless revenge in complete silence. She read his intimate messages, discovered his secret beach trip, and executed a disappearing act that no one saw coming. And before we continue, please write in the comments where you're from and how old you are. Okay, let's enjoy listening. Olivia adjusted the collar of her light coat and glanced out the window. Gray high-rises flashed by, giving way to sparse birch trees that hadn't yet fully greened up. The trip to her mother-in-law's for the birthday promised to be tedious. It wasn't that Olivia disliked Brandon's mother. Their interactions just always left a residue, as if Olivia were constantly taking some unspoken exam to prove she was the ideal wife for the ideal son. Brandon, behind the wheel, whistled a cheerful tune, tapping his fingers on the steering wheel. He looked carefree and relaxed. Too relaxed, Olivia thought. Lately, he'd been so detached, as if he were somewhere far away. They used to chat during drives, discussing weekend plans, laughing at something. Now, Brandon preferred silence, listening to music or just staring at the road. Olivia stole a glance at her husband. His profile, so familiar and beloved, seemed foreign now. Fine wrinkles had settled in the corners of his eyes, ones she hadn't noticed before, or hadn't wanted to. Lately, a vague unease visited her more often, a premonition of something bad. She recalled how Brandon had become secretive. He used to never hide his phone from her, but now he carried it everywhere, even to the shower. If someone called, he'd leave the room, speaking quietly, as if afraid she'd hear. He'd answer her questions evasively, joking them off. Work? Honey, nothing but problems. But Olivia sensed it wasn't just work. Once, she'd tried to start a conversation, asking if everything was okay between them. Brandon hugged her, kissed her temple, and said she was imagining things, that he loved her more than life. But his voice lacked its old warmth. His eyes, their former sincerity. She pushed away the intrusive thoughts. It was silly to suspect Brandon of anything. They'd been together for 10 years, weathered so much. She was probably just tired working too much. Needed to rest, unwind. But the anxiety wouldn't retreat. It had settled under her skin, itching, denying her peace. Olivia felt like a taut string, ready to snap at any moment. She looked at her hands resting on her knees, slender fingers with a wedding ring. Brandon had slipped that ring on her finger 10 years ago, on their wedding day. Back then, she was sure their love would last forever. Now, that certainty had vanished. Maybe I really am just imagining it all, Olivia tried to reassure herself. But the voice of reason sounded unconvincing. Suddenly, Brandon turned off the highway onto a dirt road. "Where are we going?" Olivia asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Forgot to buy the cake," Brandon replied, not looking at her. "There's a little shop here, always fresh baked goods." Olivia frowned. She remembered Brandon planning to buy the cake. Why hadn't he done it in the city, where there was more choice? Why drive into the middle of nowhere? But she stayed silent, not wanting to make a scene over such a trifle. The car stopped near a small, shabby store with a grocery sign. Around it, silence and calm. Only birdsong broke the idyll. "Go into the store, pick a cake to your taste," Brandon said. Olivia got out, and Brandon stayed sitting in the car. Margaret Hayes sat at the cash register, adjusting her thick-framed glasses. Shoppers bustled around as usual, but Olivia somehow felt time slowing down. She handed over money for the cake, avoiding the cashier's eyes. "Need a bag?" Margaret asked, not looking up. "Yes, please," Olivia replied, feeling a vague unease building inside. And then, Like a bolt of lightning, the question hit, "Are you Brandon's wife?" Olivia froze. 1,000 thoughts raced through her mind. How did she know Brandon? Why was she asking? "Yes," she exhaled, trying to stay calm. Margaret, as if not noticing her confusion, continued, looking straight into her eyes. "Sorry to butt in, but he was here a month ago with another woman. Buying a cake, too." The world around Olivia blurred. She heard fragments of phrases, the hum of cars outside, but it all seemed distant and unreal. "With another woman," she echoed. Margaret sighed and, lowering her voice, added, "Well, they were kissing by the car, definitely not his sister." Something inside Olivia snapped. All her vague suspicions, all her anxious premonitions suddenly took shape, turning into a painful, ugly reality. She recalled how Brandon had been avoiding her gaze lately, talking on the phone for ages while turning to the window, suddenly staying late at work. All the puzzle pieces formed one picture, a picture of betrayal. Olivia stood paralyzed, unable to utter a word. Her throat was dry, blood pounded in her temples. She wanted to scream, sob, run away, but she knew she couldn't allow herself that. Not now. "Sorry if I said something wrong," Margaret muttered, seeing her state. "Life's full of twists. Maybe it's not true at all? Don't take it to heart." Olivia forced a semblance of a smile. "Thank you," she whispered, grabbed the bag with the cake, and staggered out of the store. Brandon waited in the car, listening to music. He smiled when he saw her and asked, "What took so long? Line?" Olivia got in, trying to hide the storm of emotions raging inside. "Yeah, a bit," she replied, staring out the window. The whole drive to the cottage, she was silent, lost in her thoughts. Brandon seemed to notice nothing. He cheerfully talked about the upcoming celebration, how his mom was waiting for them, about a new project at work. Olivia listened as if through a wall of water, unable to believe that this man beside her was capable of such betrayal. Arriving at the cottage, Olivia tried to act as if nothing had happened. She smiled at her mother-in-law, helped set the table, joined conversations, but inside, she was boiling. She felt like an actress playing the role of a happy wife while her heart tore apart. Her mother-in-law, as always, was somewhat reserved and critical. She'd always found Olivia a bit complicated, too independent and self-reliant. Brandon, on the other hand, seemed content and relaxed. He joked, laughed, hugged Olivia as if trying to prove everything was fine. All evening, Olivia watched Brandon, trying to gauge what he felt, but he seemed utterly calm and self-assured, as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't kissed another woman by the store, hadn't planned a getaway with her, hadn't lied to her face. At the cottage, an atmosphere of false idol reigned. The sun lazily dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in soft pastel tones. Her mother-in-law fussed in the kitchen, humming a simple melody to herself. Brandon, seemingly unsuspecting, grilled kebabs, chatting merrily with his father. Only Olivia felt like an outsider at this celebration of life, like an observer, seeing the falseness in every gesture, every smile. She sat in a wicker chair on the porch, pretending to read a book, but her gaze was fixed on Brandon. She searched his face for signs of guilt, any hint of remorse, but saw only his usual self-confidence and carefreeness. He was so calm, so natural in his lie, that it scared Olivia. Had she lived all these years with a completely different person? The evening dragged on agonizingly. Olivia answered her mother-in-law's questions absent-mindedly, barely listening to their content. She felt every word, every gesture betrayed her inner state. She feared Brandon would notice her tension, realize she knew the truth, but he seemed absorbed in his own affairs, paying her little attention. After dinner, everyone went to their rooms. Olivia lay in bed next to Brandon, pretending to sleep. She felt his warmth, his breath, but a chasm gaped between them, one nothing could fill. One thought pulsed in her head. This is the end. When Brandon finally fell asleep, Olivia carefully slipped out of bed. Her heart pounded wildly, like a bird battering a cage. She felt like a thief doing something dirty, but she knew she had no other choice. On tiptoe, she crept to the living room where Brandon had left his phone on the coffee table. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. She knew this was wrong, invading personal space, but curiosity and the thirst for truth were stronger. The phone was password protected, but Olivia knew the code. Their wedding date. Brandon was never original. She opened the messaging app and scrolled through conversations. At first, nothing unusual work stuff, messages from friends, birthday wishes for his mom. But then she saw a name. A name that meant nothing to her before but now chilled her soul like ice. Nicole. Olivia opened the chat and began reading. The words burned her like hot iron. Brandon wrote tender words to Nicole, confessed his love, made future plans. He said he was tired of Olivia, that she'd become boring and predictable. He dreamed of trips together. A new life without her. Olivia read and couldn't believe her eyes. She couldn't believe the man she loved, relied on, was capable of such baseness. He'd lied to her face, pretended to be a loving husband, while building a relationship with another woman behind her back. There were photos, too intimate ones. Brandon and Nicole kissing, embracing, happy. Olivia stared at them, feeling a wave of anger and disgust rise in her soul. She wanted to scream, smash dishes, destroy everything, but she held back. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She needed to calm down, get a grip. Emotions were useless now. She had to think about what to do next. She opened her eyes and looked at the phone screen. In the chat, there was another folder. Beach trip. Olivia opened it and saw photos of tickets, hotel bookings, packing lists. Brandon was planning a seaside getaway with Nicole next week. She closed the phone, put it back, and returned to the bedroom. Brandon slept peacefully, unaware of the storm breaking in his wife's soul. Olivia lay beside him and closed her eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. Thoughts swarmed in her head, one crazier than the next. She built plans, devised strategies, prepared for war. Morning dawned deceptively quiet. Sunlight timidly filtered through the cottage curtains, flooding the room with soft, warm light. Olivia was already awake, though Brandon still snored beside her, serene and unsuspecting. She lay motionless, staring at the ceiling, her mind buzzing. Yesterday's discovery had split her life into before and after like a lightning strike. Pain, rage, hurt, all churned inside, but outwardly she maintained an unnatural calm. The decision formed instantly when she saw the photos on Brandon's phone. No more doubts, excuses, hopes. The point of no return was crossed. Now, only action remained. She quietly rose from bed, careful not to wake Brandon. On tiptoe, she went to the bathroom, splashed cold water on her face to refresh. In the mirror, a stranger stared back, determined, composed, with a steely glint in her eyes. Deep inside, she was still the Olivia who loved Brandon, believed in him, dreamed of a shared future. But that Olivia was dead. Only the one who must protect herself and her future remained. Back in the room, she quickly packed her things. Essentials only: clothes, documents, some cash. The rest she'd get later. The main thing now was to leave. To leave and start acting. Brandon still slept, sprawled on the bed. Olivia looked at him one last time. His face showed nothing but fatigue, no shadow of remorse, no sign of guilt. He was so calm, so self-assured, so distant from her soul's turmoil. She left the room, leaving him asleep. In the kitchen, she quickly wrote a short note. Need to run some errands, back in a couple days. She placed it prominently so he'd see it when he woke. Stepping outside, she deeply inhaled the fresh morning air. Ahead lay a new day, a new life, terrifying, daunting, but full of possibilities. The whole drive to the city, Olivia pondered her plan. She knew much work awaited, but she was ready. She was determined to prove to herself and everyone that she was a strong, independent woman capable of any challenge. First, she went to her lawyer. She told him her situation and asked to prepare divorce papers. The lawyer was surprised by her calm and poise. He expected a distraught woman, but before him stood a confident, resolute lady. Then Olivia handled property documents. She transferred all her savings to another account and blocked Brandon's access to her bank cards. She acted swiftly and precisely, not yielding to emotions. She knew she had no time for tears or regrets. She had to protect herself and her future. In 2 days, everything was ready. Divorce papers signed, property re-registered, accounts blocked. Olivia felt fully in control. That same day, she packed her things and moved to another apartment. She rented a small but cozy place in the city center. She liked that it was far from anything reminding her of her old life. 2 days later, Brandon returned to the city apartment. The cottage, though a retreat, could never replace his usual comfort. He was tired of the silence, the solitude, and an inexplicable emptiness. It seemed Olivia was taking too long with her errands. She usually called, texted, shared how things were, but now, silence. He unlocked the door and entered. Silence. Too quiet. Usually, Olivia met him at the threshold, hugged, kissed, but now, no one. Olivia, I'm home, he called, moving deeper inside. But only silence answered. He checked the living room, then the bedroom. Empty. Alert now, he inspected more closely, and his gaze fell on the table in the living room. A note lay there. He picked it up and read, Brandon, I'm gone. Don't wait for me. All divorce and property transfer documents are here. His hands shook. He quickly scanned the other papers. Apartment sale contract. Re-registered to Olivia. Car documents, too. Divorce petition already signed by her. He felt the ground slip away. How could this happen? How could she do this? He understood nothing. He rushed to the bedroom. The closet was half empty. Olivia's clothes, cosmetics, photos, everything reminding of her presence gone. He sat on the bed, drained and bewildered. One thought throbbed in his head. How? Why? A week later, Brandon received a court summons. Divorce. He called Olivia, but she didn't answer. He went to her parents, but they said they didn't know where she was. He was desperate. The court day arrived. Brandon entered the courtroom, hoping this was a nightmare that Olivia would appear and say it was a joke. But Olivia appeared. She entered with a confident stride, restrained and calm. She wore a strict business suit, her eyes holding no pity. The judge began the hearing. Brandon tried to speak, justify, explain, but Olivia didn't let him get a word in. I request to dissolve our marriage, she said in a firm voice. Further cohabitation is impossible. The judge asked a few formal questions, which she answered clearly and concisely. Then he turned to Brandon. Do you agree to the divorce? He asked. Brandon was silent. He stared at Olivia, unable to believe this was real. Brandon, I'm waiting for your answer, the judge repeated. Brandon sighed. He knew fighting was pointless. Had lost. Yes, I agree, he said quietly. The judge declared the marriage dissolved. Brandon and Olivia were no longer husband and wife. After the hearing, Brandon approached Olivia. Why? He asked, looking into her eyes. What did I do wrong? Olivia looked at him with sadness. You betrayed me, she said. You deceived me. You lied to me. You thought I saw nothing, knew nothing, but I saw everything. I just waited for the right moment. But how did you find out? Brandon asked, stunned by her insight. Olivia smiled faintly. All I needed was to check your phone, she said, and see it all. She turned and walked away, leaving Brandon standing in the courtroom alone and lost. He'd lost everything. His wife, home, car, money. But most importantly, he'd lost Olivia's trust and that he'd never regain. Olivia stepped out of the courthouse and breathed deeply. It was over. A heavy burden lifted from her shoulders. Ahead lay a new life, one where she was master of her fate. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was ready for the challenges. Olivia had become stronger, wiser, more experienced. She'd survived betrayal, but hadn't broken, she'd endured. She got into a taxi and gave the address. She was heading to her new apartment, her new home, a home where freedom awaited. The whole ride, she gazed out the window at the passing city. The city where she'd lived so many years. The city where she'd loved and suffered. The city where she'd found herself. She smiled. Ahead lay the future, and it belonged only to her. In the new apartment, emptiness greeted her, but a pleasant emptiness. One she could fill with anything. She walked through the rooms, surveying her new space. Not much furniture yet, no pictures on the walls, nothing reminding of the past. But there was silence. Silence and peace. She approached the window and looked at the city. The big city's lights twinkled in the night, like stars on a dark sky. She felt a surge of strength and energy. Olivia knew everything would be fine. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. She was free, happy, and ready for a new life. And in that moment, she understood that the most important thing in life wasn't money, property, or love. The most important was believing in yourself, in your strength, in your future. And she believed.